I lived in Surrey / Langley pretty much my entire life, like nearly 22 years, and about 7 years ago, I decided to move out to Abbotsford BC, and I believe the fact that I've lived in both cities, or 3 cities I guess, would give me an unbiased perspective on what the worst part about living in Abbotsford is. I'm that Agent Kelly. I talk about Canadian real estate and my local market of Abbotsford and the Fraser Valley, and if you're into that, please do subscribe to the channel, like this video, and if you want to chat about moving to Abbotsford, you can book a time into my calendar to do so. First things first, before I get into what I don't like about living in Abbotsford, I'm going to get into what I do like about living in Abbotsford and the positive things about living in Abbotsford, because the negative part about living in Abbotsford may not actually apply to you depending on how you live your life. I would argue that Abbotsford has a lot more to do actually within the city than a city like Surrey has. Abbotsford has tons of cool restaurants to eat at, right? They have Lou's Grill, Brodeurs, Canadian Brewhouse, Bavaria's, Bow and Stern, Lorena, Paliotes, I think it's called 𝐎𝐓𝐇𝐄𝐒, and more. It has tons of trendy cafes to enjoy your Sunday morning coffee with a scone, Banter ice cream, Revive, which is like a trendy decor shop, but you can also eat there. It's like a bistro, I guess. We have several well-known breweries like Fieldhouse, Trading Post, and Old Yale, as well as a bunch of wineries. And people will literally drive from like Surrey, Langley, as far as Burnaby to go to Fieldhouse Brewing, to go to Banter Ice Cream, and to try out some of these different places that we have out here. Abbotsford also has a bunch of outdoors things to do, like the Tulip Festival. You're 20 minutes from Cultus Lake. You're very close to camping, fishing, hiking. We have the Abbotsford Air Show. We have the Fraser Valley RV Show. We have Castle Fun Park, which has mini golfing, a batting cage, golf carts, arcade. We have the Abbotsford Event Center, which hosts the Abbotsford 𝐎𝐄𝐒, which is a WHL team. And that's great for like a cheap date night. Just go get some tickets to the Abbotsford 𝐎𝐄𝐒, eat some comfort foods, drink some beer, and watch the game. They also host a lot of concerts at that event center. Like I've seen Dallas Smith and JoJo Mason played there. Now, Langley does have a lot of trendy places to eat as well, and even some breweries, as well as the Langley Event Center, which hosts the Vancouver Bandits, which is like a semi-pro basketball team. However, Surrey literally has none of this stuff, despite the fact that Surrey is a much larger city and the population is like 6 times bigger than Abbotsford's. It doesn't have like pretty much any of these things. And even when I lived in Surrey, I would travel to Langley to go get all of these amenities. So Abbotsford actually has a city which is like 35 minutes closer to downtown Vancouver beat when it comes to amenities. Now here's the worst part about living in Abbotsford. It's actually the traffic leaving Abbotsford. Within Abbotsford itself, there really isn't any traffic going from one of these places to the next. However, when you're leaving Abbotsford at peak times, which would be 6 to 9 a.m., or you're coming back to Abbotsford anytime past 2:30 to like 6:30 p.m., you're gonna sit in traffic. And sometimes on a bad day, it's gonna take you 2 hours to get from Abbotsford to downtown Vancouver. Now, the reason why I lead with the positive stuff first is, like I said, this may not apply to you depending on how you live your life. For example, back when I was a plumber, this really sucked because I would sit in 2 hours of traffic, leaving my house at 5:30 or 6 in the morning on the way to downtown Vancouver. And then on the way back to Abbotsford, I would again sit in peak hour traffic for another 1.5 to 2 hours. And basically 3 to 4 hours of my day was unpaid travel. Now, if you do a job like the one I do today, which is a realtor, and you have some level of control over your calendar, I just book into my calendar in such a way that I'm always avoiding those peak times. So if I have to drive west, I'll basically not put that in my calendar until like 10 a.m. onwards. And then I try to be driving back to Abbotsford before 2 p.m. or after 6:30, but never during that window. And sometimes I have to do it, but for the most part, I pretty much avoid it like the plague. And I'd say this is the #1 deterrent for people not moving to Abbotsford, because everybody who lives in and around Vancouver and its suburbs knows that driving east towards Abbotsford or west from Abbotsford to Vancouver is usually terrible. They're currently working on widening the highway from like Langley to Abbotsford, but it's going to take many years, and by the time it's done, maybe the population has increased so much that it doesn't even make a difference. Who knows? But for today, the traffic is terrible. So if you're somebody who has to commute every single day, Abbotsford may not be a good option for you. But if you have a flexible job like a mortgage broker or a realtor, or maybe you work from home, or et cetera, Abbotsford's an amazing option because there's tons of stuff to do actually within the city, and it's like literally half the price of Vancouver. It's also a beautiful city surrounded by mountains and tons of views, and there's viewpoints that you can get up on top of and get amazing views of the valley, and like I said, tons of outdoor stuff to do as well. Anyway, if you're thinking of moving to here, book into my calendar with the link down below. We can chat about it. I'm that Agent Kelly. I'm making moves to move you. Peace.